Okay, so this is hypnotherapy. It is not the first thing I studied in this science, but it was about the third thing that I studied. As Nimrit says, I've always been into healing. In fact, I started healing at 4 because my grandmother was a healer and she taught me how to heal. I thought everybody did it, and I didn't understand that there are a lot of people who did not know that they had their own innate power to heal, and the body is meant to heal itself. So after I was doing this, when I was in university as well, I'd started a healing circle in university, and I'd started a healing circle outside of university as well, where, this is in Canada, where people taught each other different skills. So I learned a lot of holistic practices based on that. Whether it's therapeutic touch, whether it's kinesiology, whether it was different types of therapy, until I had this one boyfriend. This boyfriend I did not like very much at all. So I'd keep telling him, I got to get you out of my life because you're not really, the person in my life that I envision. And he was like, what are you talking about? I think you need to come with me to a past life regressor and you will see that, we're meant to be. Being in the space of different types of healing, I still didn't believe in soulmates because I just imagined that you have so many, why would you have one? That's really limited, and we're not limited beings. So I went along with it. I went to the past life regressor and experienced 4 lives. It was very zeroed in on the relationship that I had with this gentleman. And I realized we'd sabotaged each other in many lives. And in this life, the therapist said that you can let go of all the karmic burdens that you've had and come back to a place where you are fresh in this relationship, and the relationship will flourish. And what do you want? Being the kind of person I am, which is not very romantic, I said I want to clear up the baggage and I want to move on in my life because I don't want to revisit things that I don't need to visit. And this was my first entry into past life regression. I have to tell you, I studied with Brian Weiss, as Nimrit said, and a whole lot of different therapists, including Hans Stenholm. Now, the point is that I did not believe in regression therapy, even though I was studying it. So I studied it, and I kept going on talking about, oh, no, I don't get hypnotized. This doesn't work. And I kept asking and questioning, and the teacher was really getting very irritated with me. He was like, if you're not a believer in it, why are you even studying this? And I'm like, because if I can become a believer, that means it works. So that was my entry into this. We had a clinic, created their journey, and you will not be able to heal it because they're on a higher plane than you. So that was a big, revolution in my thought, because we are always judging people, and we're always judging what it is that we are working with. And the whole idea was just let go of that judgment and that ego, because when you're working with somebody, you have to understand what plane they're at. So my job as a therapist is really to make sure that your experiences are heightened and your focus is very, very narrow, because that is the only way that you can actually get to a place that you need to get to. I think that Apple is not functioning well. So the only 2 areas that we focus on as human beings when we have a problem or we have a discordance with what we're doing is protection. So when we do it out of fear. So we're going too fast in this one. 1 second. Sorry. Can you just go back? तो यहीं पे है. Go to the next one. Okay. Well. Sorry, I have to help them with this. So my role is to increase the focus of the client, as well as to make sure that it's very narrow. The only, like I said before, only 2 things that take place. You're going backward. Sorry, you can't see this. You're going backward, Priya. Yeah, just to go forward, please. We've said this. You can go forward. Okay. So we've got protection. Anything that you do in your life is only done because you're protecting your soul. You're protecting yourself. So when people say that if you're giving too much and you feel like you're not receiving, you're doing it because you're protecting yourself. If you're hurting, you're doing it because you're protecting yourself. If you have a disease, also, you're doing it because you're protecting yourself. So when people come to our center, and Nimrit's been there and worked there as well, we recognize that a dis-ease is a disease that is manifested through the dis-ease in your spiritual, your thought process, your emotional self, and you only do it to protect yourself. So it's a shield. I'm sure Thornton went through the shield as well, right? So it's a shield. And the other thing we do is pleasure. So protection and pleasure are the only two things. Within this, of course, you've got your fight, flight, and freeze. But I won't go into that because we're just talking about hypnotherapy. So in hypnotherapy, I try to figure out what is the principle, what is the operating procedure? Is it protection? Is it pleasure? Because when that is identified, it's very easy for us to work with these people. Oh, आप पीछे जा रहे हो भैया? Sorry, people. वहाँ पे करना पड़ेगा आपका. Okay. So where is this pain in the body? Where is this discordance in the body? Where is the impact of your energy levels which get shifted in the body? So I like to work with somatics first. So as a therapist, you understand what somatics are? Would anybody like to share? Okay. Somatic is what's embedded in your body, what's embedded in your cells. So whatever we have in our body is a memory imprint of what has happened to us. That memory imprint could be in this life, it could be in your past life. So the story that I was trying to show you was about this lady that had come for therapy. She was a young girl, very feisty, bubbly, and she was consistently shaming herself. She had body shame issues, she was overweight. Her family fed into this the whole time. And as a culture in India, we always talk about, "Arey, tum bade mote ho gaye ho, tum patle ho gaye ho." So we add to this problem. So the idea is that when she came in, when her parents were not there, she was really bubbly, feisty. Parents came in, there was this energy drop because she was again pushed into that place where she was only her body and nothing else. And women in general go through a lot of body shaming, personally, because we're actually constantly trying to measure ourselves to standards that don't apply to us. So working with this girl, we worked on what caused it. So in this present life, of course, it was the issue she had with her parents constantly telling her to lose weight. They were both very thin, so it wasn't like, it wasn't the genetic makeup at all. It was something more than that. So when we started to explore this, we went into a past life of hers. And that past life was a life where she was part of an army, and it was in, I think, I'm not sure what century, but it was her job to dismember the head from the body of the people that had committed a crime. Every time that she did this as the guy in that other life, she would build this resentment towards herself because she is cutting somebody's head. She knows she does not have to be involved in it emotionally, but every time she did it, she got involved in it emotionally. So this led to her rejecting her body because she had been breaking cells, killing people, making sure that she dismembered people in her previous life. This was so big for her that she continuously dismembered herself. Do you understand the connect? So dismembering herself made her feel herself only if she ate, only if she felt the weight, because she could not feel herself otherwise. So we had to reprogram her entire sense of self. We had to make her understand from the point of view of that man what her job was. She had to digest her own self. When we talk about unconditional love, we're also talking about unconditional love for yourself in all the various lives that you've had. Because those are all experiences. If you are interested, and I mean you are interested, but if you are interested in the spiritual journey, you recognize that everything that happens to you is for the experience. There is no judgment of good or bad in this experience of life. So this person may have been a bad person, but I mean, if you look at the Mahabharata, I mean, Krishna encouraged Arjun to kill his brothers because it was part of a job. And if you are doing something that is a job, you should not have to actually imbibe that in yourselves. But as human beings, the way we process it is personal to us. So where is this processed? Is it in the body? So for this girl, it was in her body. She had kept the memory stored in her body. Is it in the energy of the being? Is it in the mind of the being? So we have to recognize, where is it? Is it in the soul level? So when you actually start to work, I'm sure you know that you have physical planes of awareness and you go into causal planes of awareness. So you keep moving up. So then how do you move up? Or is it all inclusive? Where is the pain? Okay, we already know this. And I'm moving into this because what we create for ourselves. Now, Rennie was here and she said, I don't need a mic. And guess what happened? The lights went off, she didn't need the mic. That's how strong your power of thought is. I mean, there was a live demonstration here, I don't know why it wasn't picked up, right? So we have to make sure that what we are saying to ourselves, what we are saying in jest, to ourselves or to anybody around us, you have to be very sure that that is what you want. Otherwise, don't say it. There's no need. There's no need to bring it into action. There's no need to bring it into your consciousness and make a production wheel out of it. There's no need to do that. So we already know this. We've heard this many times. Neurons that work, that fire together, wire together. Now, what that means is, because we do a lot of work with neuroplasticity in our center, we can create changes in the mindset. How do you create changes? That is what hypnotherapy does. We go back to the wiring, the connection that took place. We rewire that. And how do we rewire that? I'm going to show you. We rewire that so that you can form new synapses and new thoughts can be connected with the way in which you want to feel. And after that, you have the purpose of living on the same level that you want to live in. So you have a choice every day to feel a certain way. You have a choice every day to think a certain way. So when we are stuck in our pain, when we are stuck in our agony, I do not want you to fool yourself. You are stuck there because you want to be stuck there. When people come to us for therapy, they expect a very gentle soul to be doing therapy. People who are therapists cannot be that gentle soul that is doing the therapy. You need to be so strong. You need to be in that Shakti of the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And I was talking to you in the morning about the feminine and masculine. It is so important to have both connected because the creative kinetic energy which expands is needed to do the healing. Plus the very formulated energy that is used to create operations in the soul is the masculine energy. We need both these energies to be a good healer. So when I look at people who tell me I'm a healer and I look at them and I'm like, you don't look like a healer. It's because everything is connected and you have to be able to work through your own pain, your own struggles to be that healer because you cannot fool it. You cannot be a healer. We have 4 verticals of well-being and you need to be in those 4 verticals of well-being. The first vertical, everybody knows this, but the first vertical of well-being is the mindset, right? So we're working on the mindset continuously, our own as well. Each step of the way, we have to shed our ego. We have to make sure that we are invested in ourselves. It's a process that has to be operated every day. You cannot just imagine that you're a healer and you're a counselor or you're a therapist and that's all it is and you work on other people. You will not be able to sustain your healing practices unless you're working on yourself every single day. So it's extremely important to work on yourself because the mindset is very important. The second element, we all know this, but we do not recognize that these are the elements of well-being. The second element of well-being is your physical self. You cannot be a good healer if you haven't taken care of your physical self, because it is a continuous display of your own well-being. If you do not look fit, if you do not feel fit, if you are not fit, you cannot give from that place. So please get back to your own fitness. Physical fitness is extremely important. Now, being physically fit means being at your optimum level. It is not somebody else's. So you have to analyze what is your optimum level, and are you doing that? I have therapists who I work with who say, in fact, in my clinic, I have a girl who has food eating disorder. She's like 37 kilos. She's my psychological counselor, and I'm constantly telling her, how can you be a psychological counselor and not understand that you have to take care of yourself? But the best healers are those who are working on themselves, but so she recognizes that I'm working on myself, I recognize this, and eventually I will get over it. The other girl that I have in my center, she's a little bit overweight. She can't walk as much as she needs to, and they're young. She's about 28, and I'm like, what's going on here? You're a neuropsychologist. You understand that this is important. But she's working again on her own challenges. But she's working on her own challenges. And that is the key. You have to work on it, because you cannot be a good healer if you're not working on your mental, mindset, your physical. What would be the third one? Mindset mein emotional bhi aa gaya. Spiritual will come with the accumulation of all four. Okay, so it's nutritional. We've talked about nutrition. Last time we had a bunch of Ayurvedic students. Nutrition is the key to receiving the energy that you need within your body. If you are working on the mindset and you're working on the physical, physical does not mean nutritional. Okay, nutritional is different than physical. Physical, I mean physical exercise, grounding, yoga, I mean different kinds of yoga, different kinds of maybe Tai Chi, anything that you can do to make sure your physical body, because this is the vehicle. If this is the vehicle and you are meant to drive not only yourself but other people, you need to impact this physical body. And you have to make sure that it is of value. What that means is that you have to then link it up to nutrition. If your nutrition is right, so people will come and say, I'm depressed, I haven't managed to feel any energy. The first thing we do is actually look at what are you eating? Because if you're not eating right, if you do not have the right fuel in your body, neither your mind is going to work, neither your physical body is going to work, and then obviously nothing else will work. If you're hungry, how many of you when you're hungry get really irritable? Nimrit, I know, gets irritable. There are people, right? So how is that impacting you? So you have to make sure, and of course in the physical comes in sleep. Because how many of you don't get enough sleep and are irritable? Yeah, it's all interconnected. I mean, I'm consistently, I wake up early, so I'm very excited every morning to wake up, and it's a new day, and I'm like, super excited. When Nimrit and I used to be living together, she'd be like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, come on, let's get up, let's go to the gym, let's do something, because you have to have all connected. If you do not have the dots connected, you are not in the place of well-being. The fourth, and you cannot trick any of these. The fourth is recovery. When you let go of everything that you've been doing, and you let go of your phones, and you let go of your iPads, and you let go of everything, and you get into nature. You get into nature. Recovery is the fourth element. When you are working with somebody, figure out where they are on all four of these. So we have an intake form where we figure out where are they? Where do I need to start on this physical plane? Where do I need to start the healing? After this physical plane, I'll move on to the next one. But that's extremely important for us to understand. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So when I started hypnotherapy, I also questioned it because I'm scientific in my mind. And we know that hypnotherapy has not been received well by the sciences, by the practitioners, the doctors. They're like, what is this pseudoscience? And why do you keep talking about this pseudoscience? And how does it really work? And at first, I used to get really offended with this pseudoscience. In fact, we were at this university where we created this peace program. And it's very annoying when you meet people who are constantly judging it. It's like, why are you judging it? First of all, this is not... So the first thing they asked me was, so do you do alternate medicines or do you do medicine? I'm like, what do you need done? Because if you tell me what you need done, I'll tell you which one actually works well. And they were like, no, maybe this new age form doesn't really work that well. I got immediately offended because this is not new age. This is the oldest form of therapy. These are the oldest forms of healing. It's been done in the chambers of the Greeks. It's been done in the sleep chambers. It's been done everywhere before science was actually manufactured. And I've actually put together a series telling you what all we do. But the respectability of hypnotherapy is not good, which means that people don't come for hypnotherapy as much. And if they do come, they have to be believers in it. If you're not a believer, you cannot get healed with anything. If you are a believer, we can take you to where you need to go. So for me, I remember when I used to fight with this gentleman called Sunny Satin, and I was like, you know, if I can't get hypnotized, how will I hypnotize others? And he said, you just have to let yourself go. You just have to let yourself go and you will be there. When I did that, and I'd get really embarrassed because he'd be like, okay, can you come as a volunteer and show everybody? And I'm like, no, I do not want to be that vulnerable in front of so many people. But every time that I worked on this, I realized that power of vulnerability. And when you're dealing with your clients, you have to understand the power of their vulnerability because that is what actually heals them. That is where the healing starts. And unless you're comfortable with your own vulnerability, you will never take your clients there. As a therapist, the reason I'm going back into as a therapist, because when I asked you, 90% of you are therapists. As a therapist, you have to be 100% at peace with who you are. Good, bad, ugly. Doesn't matter. You have to be 100% at peace with who you are so that you can work on the gaps. Consciousness, or the altered state of consciousness, is what hypnotherapy works through. In fact, even your meditation, everything works through that. So it's the same thing. It's the same process. All therapies which are considered alternate, now they're considered complementary. They all follow the same pattern. You have to understand the mind-body connect. When I'm saying it's in the body, we also do a tapping. Right? We have EFT, but we also have a tapping through hypnotherapy, where if we tap the back and there is a pain area in it, you study this, is it? And there's a pain area in it, we can go through the body into the pain. We have all practitioners, and I've written that there, so all practitioners need to understand how to use hypnotherapy because people go into hypnosis automatically. You do not have to create the state. So if you don't know how to use hypnotherapy to help your clients, you will lose a prime opportunity to heal them. So I would suggest, please study a little bit in it. Pain perception. Hypnotherapy is used a lot in pain because pain is not really understood except when it's understood in the mind. So our perception of pain is what is most important. That's why you can cut off pain. That's why we have labor, we use hypnotherapy, hypnobirthing. If there is a constant pain, I had a client who had a progressive disease, and she would come just to get rid of the pain and to make sure a little more flexibility came in her body. And it worked really well for her. Because when she was aware and we gave her a trigger, because you can give triggers, you can do that, and NLP. Anybody practice NLP here? Couple of people? Okay. NLP does the same. We give you triggers, we make sure that we anchor it in your body, we make sure that you are able to work through that. Neuro-linguistic programming, it's called neuro-linguistic programming. So, can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay. I've already talked about the fact that people want proof the whole time of the material world. And we've been here 2 days. How much of life can we really see from the material world? Shoot out some numbers. How much of life exists in your material world? In the world that you recognize, in the world that you can see, in the world that you can actually walk. Maximum 10 to 20%. Everything else that is happening, you cannot see. You can sense, and maybe sometimes you have to elevate your senses to be able to get to those planes where you can actually recognize them and work with yourself. So as a therapist, we are only the guides, right? We are guiding you in your journey. And as I was saying to you in the morning, unless you make sure that you understand that you are only guiding them, And that you are actually receiving a lot more from your patient than your patient is receiving from you. Because you're learning at every single sentence your client is speaking to you, you are learning something new. So when you are in therapy and you have to be so open, that does not mean receiving their negativity. It means being open to understanding what really is happening on a soul level. Sunny, I'm really happy to see you, but you're sitting really far at the back. I would have liked you to be sitting in front. Can you hear me at the back also? Can everybody hear me at the back? Okay. Can we move on to the next slide? Okay. So what is the current state of research? There's a lot of research on the mind-body and mind-body physics, quantum physics. There's a lot of research on this. So now they're bringing what they call alternate sciences into the mainstream. This is what your integrated medicine conference is about. We understand that stress is the largest area of concern because every dis-ease causes the disease. Every dis-ease causes the disease. It's been drilled into my mind with every therapist that I've studied. Okay? So a dis-ease in the mind causes a disease in the body, and you have to make sure that you work on the dis-ease before it's transferred into the body. And as Dr. Sachin was saying yesterday, that cancer is caused by feeling unloved. Cancer is, all these diseases are caused by gaps in your own emotional lives, and emotional hurdles that you carry become physical hurdles. So you need to make sure it doesn't work physical hurdle to the mind. It works mind to the physical hurdle. So when I have to work with somebody, I'll always ask them, my first question is, when did you allow this into your life? And they'll always say, I don't allow this into my life. I'm just unlucky. No, that's not true. You're not just unlucky. When did you allow this in your life is actually a very pertinent question. And if you take them to meditation or relaxation or progressive relaxation, and you tell them to go to the point of entry of the problem, they will tell you where it started. And it generally, if it started in this life, you will go straight to it. Otherwise, a story will come up. And that story is past life regression, which is what we're talking about. Now, medicine, and somebody mentioned yesterday, doctors are more qualified to mention this, they do not heal anything. They just suppress. Suppress means it builds up more, and it finds another channel. When it finds another channel, it will come out in a different way. So again, you've got to make sure that medicine, when we work with the clients, we make sure that we can minimize that. In fact, we had a very sad case happen in our center. The gentleman was about 67. He was working, he was a very successful man, and he used to come for therapy. And the wife had said, you know, Prakriti, he's never managed to open up the way he opens up with you. He's always been so rigid because he's always been so, so well recognized. So it's very important that he keeps coming. He was at my center. I went away for a holiday. While I was at my holiday, the son messaged me to tell me that he's committed suicide. And I was horrified. Like, why did he commit suicide? He was being taken care of by our center as well. It wasn't very easy for me to digest. And what turns out, he was on a host of medications. So the son said, don't feel bad. The medication that he was on were working against each other, creating suicidal ideation. And that is why he took that step. Now, this is very scary for me. So I work with psychiatrists because there are some things that we can't do alone. The psychiatrist, the only psychiatrists that I work with are the ones that understand I do not want to give much medication. So please give the least so that we can work on them, even though the medication is on. So that is something that we look at. How do we integrate medicine and these sciences? Since I have only 5 minutes, I'm going to try to move faster. We know that every autonomic disorder is caused by stress, like I said, or stress-related mind symptoms. There's only fight or flight. So if your nervous system gets into a state of frenzy, diseases are created. And when we do hypnotherapy, we get to when that state of frenzy started. So it's in the nerves. We can heal everything because everything operates through your nerves. Pain works. Habit formation. And using this creative approach is where we can actually start to bring about a change. So when you have a client and it's a nerve-related disorder, you can work with that. When you have a client and it's a pain-related disorder, you can work with that. If it's a habit-related disorder like alcohol or any kind of addiction, you can work with that because these are all things that are caused because of a gap in your self, in your mindset, or in your nutritional self, or in your physical self. So we know that the mind and the body is involved in the creation of the illness. We know that our job is to change that limiting belief. So if you take home one thing, as a therapist, find that limiting belief of the client. Because that limiting belief, when you find that and you change it to the unlimited, you will see the divinity start working. So you've got to change that. Irrational fears, presenting problems, etc. These are things that are normal. I'm going to move fast because I only have now 3 more minutes. Okay, this is important. When we actually work through the patient and where the problems lie, we've got to make sure we understand, is it in the physical body? Is it in the etheric body? Is it in the astral body? People who studied this will understand the progression. The ones that are in your physical body, the gross body, are actually things that are apparent and can be worked on quite easily. But as you start progressing upwards, it is very difficult. So we've integrated Thornton's mechanism of biofeedback to see where is our patient? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Where is the problem? And we can actually tell if it's a past life problem or if it's a present day problem. So we use that very effectively to ensure that we do not miss the root of the issue. Because if you're healing something that is not in the root, you're not going to fix it. If you're doing a root canal versus doing a filling, when you need a root canal, you are going to be actually having a lot of problem and you're going to have to remove that tooth anyway, right? So don't work on fixing a problem from the presenting problem. Hypnosis looks kind of like this. So people say, can everybody be hypnotized? No. It depends on how suggestible you are. So everybody cannot be hypnotized, but because everybody cannot be hypnotized, we do NLP and different kinds of things. So we have a whole lot of things that we can do to make sure that we can work with them. The power is only with the client. So we cannot read brains and read minds and read thoughts. The power is with the client, and you make sure that you allow them to recognize their power, because only in their power can they heal. They cannot heal in our power. So I always have people ask me, but don't you take in all their problems? No. I don't, because I'm guiding them. It's in their power. What has it got to do with me? I'm only a channel helping them. So you have to also remember that your ego should not come in the way, because your ego comes in the way, you start receiving those problems. Do you understand that? That's a key problem I've seen, because we teach a lot of therapists, but that's a key problem I see with people. They believe in their power so much that they think they're doing it all. And if you are God, if you have that God-like ego, then there's going to be a problem. Right? So we make sure that we do not do that. The steps in hypnotherapy are you formulate the contract. When a client comes in, they love talking about everything. Cut through that and say, but how do you want to feel once you walk out of here today? How do you want to feel when you walk out of here? And you only work on that. So there's an induction, there's regression, there's catharsis. Catharsis is needed. When the client starts to really feel that vulnerability, that is when you need to understand that you've got to the pain area. Because if there's a pain area, you will feel it in the emotional self as well, right? So you do this, but you do not end until you forward pace it. First you ask them, when in this life did this start to manifest itself? So key question, you cannot do hypnotherapy without that question. I'm only giving you the keys. When in this life did it start manifesting itself? Number 2, the second one, when you forward pace it. Now that you have healed yourself, how will you feel? When they tell you how they feel, anchor it. Anchor it because you don't want it to be lost in their everyday struggles of life. You anchor that so that that becomes their new operating system. That's the wire that fires together after that. Those thoughts, the new thoughts. So I'm not going to move into this because we don't have time. So the things that we do in our center are biofield viewer, because we always start with understanding where it is in your body. Biofield, so neurofeedback is something that we do a lot with all our clients. We make sure we do that because we want to work with the brain, stretching the brain, enhancing the power. We make sure that we do a lot of counseling. We have counselors, we have CBT, REBT, we have the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy as well. We have sound healing, we have crystal healing, chakra healing, all kinds of things in our center, because it is an integrated center, which people call new age clinics, but I don't like calling it new age because it's actually old age and olden ages. So it's a center that actually does everything. We've also tied up now with GPs as well as with a lot of psychiatrists, but only the ones that actually believe in not prescribing too much medication. So biofield viewer, I'm sure you've seen this. Yes? Thornton has his machine. I think he's been doing some work with people. It gives you an idea of what really goes on. Can we move on to the next one, please? Neurofeedback, this is our neurofeedback space. This is what we do, where we connect electrodes to the brain. We make sure that we can see what is happening in the mind, how are the signals passing, and how do we then work on raising the functionality of the brain by introducing new ways of them receiving these signals and then making it a process. It's a 20-session process. It doesn't happen in one session. When people come to you and say, how fast does it work? It doesn't work fast. It takes 20 sessions to make sure you're at your peak, because I don't know where the problems lie, and I need to check. For 5 sessions, we're checking where your actual balance is, and then we start working to enhance that. Can you move on, please? Move on. That's how the charts look, so it gives us an idea. Sound healing, vibration, frequency, counseling. So most people come to our center for counseling. Our center is known for counseling, so they come for counseling, but then we start providing everything else because we want to heal them fast. Counseling sometimes can take even 5 years, because for them to realize in their cognitive mind what's going on, people don't like to, they don't like to know that it's their problem. So when you don't know it's your problem, when you do not want to take any accountability for your problems, your healing is much slower, because you have to get to that place. Whereas if you just meditate, or you just hypnotize them, or you use mindfulness, or you use any other techniques that you're using, they get to that subconscious mind faster, and the subconscious mind doesn't hold the ego. There's no good or bad, so they heal faster. I'm sorry, I'm going fast. There's no time. This is the last few slides. Crystal healing. This is the eye sound pharmacy. You can't hear the sound because there is no sound. But sorry. So iSound Pharmacy is an app that we have. I created it a while ago, I think in 2015? 2015. So it uses sound to heal. But what I've done is I've created a new modality for sound. So first we understand what sound the patient likes. We make sure that we understand what the vibration sound is in the frequency of the body. To get to the optimum level, we create those sounds, we put it on a client playlist, we give that playlist to the client. And the client then has that with them so that they can actually go through this. It was built for therapists. I introduced it in the World Regression Congress, where I taught therapists how to use this. Nimrit was there in those days. It's extremely powerful, because I do not believe the sound that the body actually needs to heal themselves is loud. It's the frequency and the vibrations that are not in the volume. So it's extremely important. It's an extremely important fraction of what we do. Okay, forget this because there's no time. Okay. Last slide, and then I can ask, if you have some questions, we can go through that. So remember that you are far greater than the circumstances that you're in. And I say this to everybody. I've had I've had fights with a lot of gurus, so-called gurus, because they always say things like, people are on a different plane, and the people that are economically weaker, they obviously have lower soul energy. Somebody had said this to me once. I was shocked. I was like, Nisarga Datta Maharaj was under a tree when he got enlightenment. How can you say this? And to people that are actually listening to you. So remember that there is no such thing. The soul is at different levels, and whatever experience you've decided to get in this life is part of your experience chain. You don't know whether it's the last experience or whether it's in the process of experiences. You don't know that. So never judge where the person is. In the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about 4 lakh soul energies, right? It's 4 lakh soul levels. So there is no way you can understand where the soul level is. Just understand that it is beautiful and it is divine and it is their journey, and you give back in that way. Mission is towards happiness. Everybody talks about this happiness. Happiness not in the way in which we feel it. Happiness in the soul journey, which is going to be your entire spectrum of experiences. That is where we're trying to get the person to. Elevate them to a bird's eye view of their life, see where it is that the dissonance is, and start working on that. And this is also done through frequency, so it's quite important to work on that. Remember, and I think a lot of people have said this, I think Ocean said this yesterday as well, that the future is happening now. Like however you want to feel, however you want to think, however you want to be, it happens now. There is no such thing as, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be happy. No. If you're not happy, you can tell yourself to be happy now, because now is when everything is taking place. So, and this is not, so people will say, well, that's not true because I'm in a bad marriage, I'm in this, I'm in that, and I constantly have this negativity around me. You're allowing it. It's your choice. Be in it now. That takes away the victimhood of everybody. From the victim to the victor. That is what all our therapies do. Okay, we can move on. I think we're done. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I can take them up. I was going to take you through an exercise, but I don't think I'll do that because we don't have time. Any questions? We can also take it off. Okay, so no questions. Thank you very much.